Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 36 of Nutanix Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. Back in charge. At least I got here on time today. And that's saying a lot because I don't get anywhere on time these days.
Sees the leadership roles in technology parlance.
I feel like tiger by the tail. I know exactly what whoever came up with that saying meant. So Harvey Green is with me. Harvey is one of our solutions architects. I think I've called you guys sales engineers forever, but I think it's time to call it solution architect. We'll get Jirah's opinion on that here in a second. Harvey, how's it going?
Pretty good. I actually knew the podcast episode this time.
How do you normally figure it out? Because when I'm not here, I don't.
Well,
this try to figure it out.
This time, well, last time I figured it out by actually going to the page and trying to count them out since they weren't labeled in that way. And this time I knew because you corrected me last time.
No, okay. Well, when you say go to the page, you go to our website, or you go to Apple, or where do you go?
No, the back end page to
the Buzzsprout.
Yeah, Buzzsprout.
Okay, yeah. That's the secret people don't know. Yeah, Buzzsprout. You just stick it there and it goes all the places you've told it to go.
Yeah.
Well, we got Jirah with us. Jirah Cox, you moved yet?
We are actually, as of now, under contract as of this past weekend. So we know when we're going to be moved by. So between now and mid-January, it's going to get busy over here.
Mid-January. That's your get out date.
Yep. We will be shown the door happily, since the whole thing was our idea anyway. So.
And remind me, you're moving to the Raleigh area. Is that right?
Yep. We're going to be in Chapel Hill.
Okay. I'll come see you all the time. I'm there a lot.
Sounds good.
Just drop by.
Yeah, man. No, let's do it.
What's the driver to move? Are you remote working? That's what everybody else is doing?
I already was and still will be, right? So my company was like, okay, that's cool. Thanks for letting us know. Like zero impact whatsoever. So no, it's not a job thing. It will put me closer to our East Coast headquarters, but that's totally just coincidental. Now we've got family moving from the Austin area to the Raleigh area, and so we're going to be closer to them.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's family is extremely important, and having that flexibility. That I was in Morganton, North Carolina this weekend, and apparently it's growing. I didn't really see it, but my people I was with saw it or say it is. And I said, well, what are these people doing? And they said, well, they just remote work. And my response is, I get it, but what about the need to hybrid work, and how long will this remote work thing last? I mean, we talk about it all the time on these podcasts, but I mean, is it really going to be the world where the employee just picks where they live from now on?
I think that's the employee's desire / expectation, right?
Yeah.
I think if it goes to simply that and just that, a lot of other things would have to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff as simple as, you think you're so smart, right? You move to some place that's going to be very cheap cost of living, so that you're still making the same thing, but you're out there where it doesn't cost you anything. But then you forget little things like, oh, I had, awesome internet over there, and it's pretty terrible over here.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens if you get caught up in that, mass layoff, or you get let go or whatever? And now your next employer doesn't follow suit with. And Jirah, this isn't saying that you're moving to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, because you're getting closer to the mothership. I don't think that was the intention, or at least the second biggest office, I believe. So that's probably even a better move for you. It probably creates new career opportunities if you want them.
It's even actually, I believe, the larger support center for us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, in the Research Triangle, aka Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, is not a bad place to be for a techie.
No, it's a fantastic place to be. I'm looking forward to it very, very much.
Yeah.
But sure. No, I mean, you're highlighting some great questions, right? Around, society, like culturally, right? We, the remote work, live anywhere you want to, pick your own hours, totally not evenly distributed, right? Across all jobs, across all functions, across all industries, right? So yeah, you're totally right that there would be questions around, but what if X changes, then therefore Y?
Right. Well, you guys, thankfully, and you're great about it, picked a blog for us today that recaps some of the top sessions from .next, because I believe you're going to tell me that they're now available online, and we want people to know they're there and go check them out, right?
They are, but we can even segue that from, you know, the conference from anywhere, right, along with the work from anywhere. So
right.
this was yet another conference quote on your terms, right? So some really deep content, deep knowledge available to you in your sweats and slippers, right? That probably wouldn't be up to the dress code of the average tech conference if we had to attend it in person. But, you know, from the comfort of your own home, you can get some pretty good education on some really good topics here that, yeah, to your point, Andy, totally all available, totally all complimentary, right? So, so we wanted to advertise that it's out there, talk through what I think this is a pretty cool list of, not just by way of reminding people what's out there, but also like, here's what our customers are getting the most value out of, right? What sessions are actually popular, and what are people given that freedom to attend whatever they want to, actually making the time to sit through.
Yeah. So the official blog name is .next top sessions, and this was put together by Maya Bibi and Rose Batia or Batia. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but they get credit. We're just talking about it. So let's. I think we've done a good job introducing the concept. The first one that's listed here, Jirah, is one-click lifecycle management for your HCI environment. I mean, this is what Nutanix has been great at from early on, and making, not the only ones that make HCI work, but the only ones that do a great job of making that user experience from an admin perspective flawless and easy. From the
those definitely two of the goals, right? I was highlighting for a team the other week, right? Like setting up sort of but why would I pick Nutanix? I'm like, well, you've heard us talk about our amazing support, right? That, you know, leads the industry, and they had actually experienced this, so it resonated with them. But then I'm like, well, but that's not just like what you think of as your traditional HCI focus, right? It's not just storage, not just compute, and of course even management. Like that goes both up and down, right? Like firmware, cluster expansions, you know, how do I get new firmware on my NIC, right? To avoid, you know, some kind of published advisory around any new firmware from the NIC manufacturer, but up the stack too, right? Like, how do I automate deployments on the platform? How do I like make a new database spring into life? And if you even deploy Postgres specifically with Era, like how do I even get support for that database itself? Like that's like what could be like 9 different vendors there that can be as few as one, you know, radical simplification. Radical consolidation, right? Like I could call Nutanix for every bit of that stack, right? And that's a pretty cool proposition there, right? To say like, not only is our support great, but it also covers probably more than you're realizing here when you think about it.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, when you guys were mostly deploying on top of VMware, there was a lot of talk about the number of VMware experts you guys had on staff, and how you might, you need one real VMware to help. You might find the best place to go is through Nutanix. On that stack, and getting help from guys who really know the vSphere ESXi world inside and out.
We've got really smart folks. I came here knowing VMware super well, and I've actually learned more while I've been here.
Yep. Harvey, thoughts, comments on lifecycle management and that being part of the Nutanix story?
I mean, the big one to me is how much that actually covers. I mean, I've had lots and lots of conversations around people who have wanted to do updates, and they do updates, and they update the hypervisor, but then, you know, updating the hypervisor and storage and firmware and BIOS, like that's normally a weekend for a lot of people.
Right.
Not only a weekend, but a weekend of downtime. And
with a whole lot of hope involved, hoping you did it all right.
Well, exactly. And what are you usually doing? What are you usually doing during the week leading up to that weekend, Harvey?
You're planning the entire time,
right? There's probably not just like a one pager on it, right? Here's your customized, cookbook for your environment.
I mean, to Andy's point, you're doing a lot of crossing your fingers, because at the end of it, if for whatever reason the update doesn't go all the way through, you know, you spend all your whole week planning for this, planning for the downtime. How much time was spent on, hey, what happens if this doesn't come back up? Generally, not a lot.
Yep. Nope. Checking the matrices, checking the order of operations, right? That's normally a you thing.
Order of operations. Oh man, don't even get me started on that.
Well, if you're not careful, if you don't have this type of solution, it turns into a CLM, career limiting move.
Yeah,
Totally,
absolutely.
totally. Right. That's usually the way I tee it up is if you did all of this perfectly, that's still, you're delivering business as usual, right? Like you're fighting that your human efforts are equal to like an automatable process, clearly an automatable process, because we do that, right? And so then your outcomes are either business as usual or risk, right? Like some sort of outage caused or felt or a hiccup. And it's like, man, you know, the like why, right? Like let's give humans more time to do better work. You know, and not make people spend time prepping, doing monitoring, recovering from, you know, automatable processes.
Right.
Yeah, this is another one that I file under Nutanix for your sanity. And I know you guys are probably tired of me saying that, but this is one that definitely falls under that.
Well, and then one of the things that you would hope would be your way to approach this would be doing testing on like for like hardware and configurations. And you don't have that in the real world very often.
Right.
It's tough, very tough.
All right, next item here, deep dive into HCI, getting to know the Nutanix architecture. I guess we've been around it so long, we just assume people understand the control VM concept and putting that on every node and how the writes and redundant writes happen. Jirah, is this really just making sure people understand the basics of Nutanix HCI?
Yeah, well, and I agree with you. It's about something that, right, like certainly the three of us all just assume, oh yeah, we know this, and probably everyone else knows it too. And I think it speaks to the new kind of meetings we're having, right? Like, oh, so you're in charge of NAS storage at your employer, you're in charge of the private cloud initiative, or you are in charge of databases, right? People that traditionally have not maybe been in the room as we're doing our whiteboards as to how does HCI work, what does the CVM do, how does Nutanix do data replication and failover, and what do we do when X fails, right? Because hardware on a long enough timeline, hardware is going to fail, right? And hopefully we want to make that a non-heartbreaking event. Yeah. And so I think this speaks to, as we're bringing these people into the conversation, right? NAS admins, database admins, private cloud admins, and architects. They're like, wait, Nutanix what, right? We've talked about, I knew Era, I knew Calm, I knew files or objects, right? Tell me more about this underlying AOS layer, right? And how does that actually do what it does on the box?
Yeah, that for me was the aha moments. And then these application layer functionality pieces are just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Especially coming from a world of build it yourself 3-tier back before that was even a term.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You know, you've got this coming out of .next, where you did a class on this for anybody who wants an even deeper dive and labs. This is what we, you know, do for our workshop that I host every month, which the next one is December 1st. So feel free to jump out there and sign up for that too. Hopefully watching this will get your appetite whet for a little more knowledge and some hands-on with it.
I would never tell you how to do your thing, Harvey, but it sounds like if you're doing it on December 1st, right? Like you should get like a free advent calendar for attending, right? That's where my head goes. What? An advent calendar, right? Y'all do the chocolate countdowns to Christmas?
No.
I've got to have a caloric angle to everything, right?
So. Chocolate countdown does sound pretty interesting, though.
you get the little doors open one each day.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I just haven't done one like that before. It sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, right. What you mean is I haven't done one since I was a kid at Jirah. Well, I can tell you I've already got mine bought, so I'm ready.
I didn't say anything about it since I was a kid. I don't know that I did it then.
It's a lot of fun in Jirah's house.
I'm just gonna say the dog napping over here in my office has her own advent calendar that we're waiting to start on December 1st.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I got plenty enough chocolate and candy left over from Halloween. So, but where's the house or the calendar?
Got to plan ahead.
So number 3 here is accelerating your public cloud journey, which with Nutanix clusters, to be specific. Yeah, obviously a big part of the Nutanix story, as you learn what Nutanix has fundamentally done, and then knowing that that is a layer that can go right into the cloud. We've talked about it a bunch on these podcasts, but certainly knowing that your future is bulletproof as you start to think about going to clouds and coming back and vice versa, and living between the clouds, hybrid to be the industry word. That's another part of what you guys are giving people the opportunity to go back and relearn from .next.
Totally. Well, and I think the keyword there is accelerating, right? Like it's all about speed of delivery. I mean, I've sat in the room with customers, right, doing the POC where it's like, oh wait, we can turn this up how fast, right? Like we just click a button here and I get a new cluster in any availability zone that I pick there in 45 minutes. Like it's really ridiculously game changing in some ways, right? Like well, Harvey and I, we share a customer, right, who it affected their DR strategy, right? Where it's like, wait, when I can get more nodes on demand, I will actually sort of deploy less, right? Like it was you know, they'll run their pilot light cluster, they'll expand that cluster as they want to onboard more users if they do a desktop failover. And rather than run a second pilot light cluster, if they want to scale beyond a second cluster, they're like, no, I can stand that cluster up while my first 2,000 users are ramping up on cluster 1, right? It's that kind of speed is a real enabler.
Yeah, I think that is a great way to describe it too. You run your pilot light, and you know, when you actually need it, then you flip the switch and boom, you know, fireplace.
Yep. Or you wait 3 seconds, boom, fire happens. And that's the reality, and that's, you know, that's expected, but so much better and more revolutionary than the old reserve a bunch of hardware down at some data center somewhere that may or may not even be up to speed when you need it.
Yeah, clusters is a really cool topic. We should probably address that in the podcast one day.
Well, I do want to. Well, okay, so you guys talked about DR. Jirah, if I'm someone who's not involved to the level I am, but even me, when I start talking about Nutanix clusters on Azure, or let's say Nutanix clusters AWS here, and then what we're going to talk about next is a deep dive into building the hybrid cloud with Nutanix clusters on Azure. Where does Xi fit into that? Xi, DR as a service kind of thing?
Totally. I think manageability would be a key one, right? So like if the goal is I want to have just DR as a service, I want to be able to call Nutanix for yet again another layer in the stack, right? I just call them and they fully manage my entire DR environment. That would be Xi, right? That would be the DR as a service environments that we operate on customers' behalf, right? Available as a service. Pick your number of VMs that you want to protect.
Yeah.
And I think start as soon as today if you wanted to, right? Like swipe credit card, get DR done. Yeah. Compared to, you know, well, our strategy involves partnering with pick your certain major hyperscaler of public cloud, right? That's our strategic cloud partner. We want to put our spend within that environment, and that's where you would look at, you know, AWS, look at Azure, and bring in, you know, maybe existing cloud architects, right? Or if you already heavily invested or built out in those clouds, partnering with those can certainly make sense. So, you know, as always, like it's what problem to solve.
Yeah. So where is Xi located? Can you say, is it your own data centers? Is it one of the hyperscalers? What is it?
I know we've got East and West Coast US availability zones. We've got global availability zones around the world that I don't have memorized. That's honestly what I know.
But they're in your own data centers, or they're in one of these other guys?
We operate, I don't think we like poured concrete, but we operate Nutanix operated data centers that, you know, does the hosting there for our customers.
Okay. And then Nutanix has decided that the strategic play for the hybrid workloads, though, is to go with these bigger hyperscaler public cloud folks, but then also offer Xi as a service that's straight up out of Nutanix data centers.
Yeah. I mean, right. I think that all sounds factual to me, right? We never would have got, I don't think Xi will get AWS or Azure to go put footprint in our data centers, right? So offering customers the choice of saying, if you want to be within that availability zone of that hyperscaler provider, then here's a way to consume their offering, right? In the form of bare metal nodes to go run Nutanix workloads there.
Yeah. So we did go from 3 to 4, and 4 was talking about Nutanix clusters on Azure, which is a newer piece of the story, but still that public cloud, bare metal type of offering using Nutanix software to create that ubiquitous layer between your on-premises or on-premises locations, plural, and Azure if you've so chosen to work with Microsoft.
Totally. I just say on-prem, right? Simplify that way. I don't have to worry about the grammar. But yeah, for sure, right? It's super understandable, right? That a popular session would be, no, I want the giant whiteboard. Give me all the diagrams. I know how this works on AWS. Show me how this works on Azure, right? Because I need to start planning my deployments for that kind of replication, interoperability. As that leaves preview, how do I plan to operationalize that within my environment? If I was a customer, this is 100% a session that I would be sitting in.
Yeah. And just so we're clear, Azure clusters on Azure is still, it's a tech preview, right? Do we have any updates on it going live?
It is in preview, and I have no updates. You have all my updates.
All right, no updates. Harvey, thoughts between?
I still remain agnostic as to whether or not it can or cannot run Windows 10 multi-user.
Multi-session.
I forgot, multi-session. Sorry, that's how bad I am at memorizing my homework.
I've been kind of beat down on that one. I've kind of given up, but we'll see. And rightfully so. It sounds like that multi-session Win 10, Win 11 needs to come out of the Microsoft Store, or what do they call it? Store? What do they call it?
If you did not ask that, I could have told you.
Yeah.
Now I gotta look.
No worries. All right.
That's
Next
it.
one is the database complexity puzzle. I think we're talking era here. Are we talking era? Number 5.
Yeah, I think it's how to use the Nutanix platform to simplify a database environment, right? And error is at the heart of all of that, right? How do I use less storage, holding copies of the same data? How do I deploy databases and database servers faster? How do I patch them, right? How do I maintain, if you have 2,000 database servers today, there's probably already some kind of effort about how do I keep them all patched to an approved baseline, right? How do I do that process more simply? Or if I don't have that process today, how do I get one? How do I bring more automation to all of my deployments and make all that run faster?
And are these error managed database, they can be unique, each one unique, or they need to be all of the same content and records?
No, they can all be 100% unique. Like there's, Era does 4 things. Pop quiz for myself here. Do I know all 4? Copy data management, right? So if you have prod, dev, test environments that are all the same data, how do I A, get copies done faster, and B, take up less space making all those copies, right? Quit doing backups and restores for each copy. Automation for deployments, whether that's databases or database servers, patching, security, and let's say 3 for now. There's a 4th one that'll come to me. But I have yet to meet a customer that needs all 3 equally, right? Usually one of those is like the more important initiative, right? Like I spend too much time and too much space stamping out copies of my prod, dev, test, QA, smoke test, UAT database environments, right? And I'm just all day long copying data around, and it takes up space. Or, the automation, right? Like I want to open an app store for my DBAs and let them, self-service their own database snapshotting, database deployment, or recovery, right? The last one, right? How quickly do I get back from a database that like goes offline due to either accidental, intentional changes, good intentions, ransomware, whatever the event was, right? How quickly can I recover that database in place back to the last known good state? So all that stuff, there's ways to solve almost all of that, especially if you're good at scripting. But how do I do that simply, right? In a way that I can get support for the full stack, that I can also roll out and get value out of in weeks and days, not years and months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's an important point that you hit on too, is that, a lot of times people come into these and try to solve one problem and then accidentally learn that they can solve 4. Instead of, taking something like this and a technology like this, a platform like this, and evaluate it to solve all four problems at the same time, or all the, the entire set of problems at the same time instead of piecemealing and one at a time. I won't jump on my soapbox, but that's very much the difference between taking care of things one at a time and actually doing some solution architecting.
So this last one, number 6 here, is get more out of your OpenShift container platform with Nutanix. This has forced me to go out and do some research on Kubernetes versus Docker, which isn't really a thing. They shouldn't be versus. It should be how Kubernetes manages container platforms. Nutanix partnering with Red Hat so that this becomes part of your on-premises as well as your cloud story using best of breed of both. This is what we covered recently in a podcast. Just an opportunity, right, to go out and get some of that content from .next.
Totally right. Headline announcement from the show. A partnership driven out of both being fantastic technical fits together, as well as we both enjoy broad customer install bases that want us to also work more closely together. So good technical fit, good relational fit. Definitely a super exciting announcement. And yeah, so it's understandable that a popular session from the show would be, hey, what if I know one of those technologies, not the other, I want to learn more about how they work well together. What can I get out of it? To your point, like, everyone's on their own journey of, but I know what an app looks like from 10 years ago. What do you mean I need to turn that one giant app into 100 little apps, right, that all talk to one another? That sounds more complex. And in some ways, arguably it could be, but what do I get out of that level of application re-architecting, right? Why do I want 100 microservices and not one giant monolithic service? In terms of automation, speed of deployment, the ability to push out changes faster, easier code testing, right? I can know that I'm writing a good, better, faster app as I push out my daily updates. So yeah, for sure, right? Like it's. I think this is a telling indication that application modernization also is more popular than we tend to think about or even give airtime to. And the customer demand out there for education on it is definitely out there.
Well, what happened with me is I was talking to a kid in college the other day about hyperconverged and virtual machines, and he went straight to Kubernetes. Like he just skipped the whole virtual machine part. He's like, why do anybody need that? I got Kubernetes. And I'm like, oh, and so it's interesting to watch the next generation and how they'll just think in terms of microservices, not machine encapsulation. Yeah,
100%, right? And that's why today with my customers, I tend to focus around what apps do you write in-house, because I find one of the leading indicators of like demand for microservices platforms, containerized platforms. What's going to come, right, is when is my packaged commercial software delivered in that same form factor? The same way, if I gave you an MSI or an EXE, how to put that on your laptop, how to operationalize that on a server.
Right.
But when it comes to, clone this repo, right? Or, here's the Artifactory, plug in, go subscribe to this, right? And spin up 10 load balance instances. When that becomes the language of commercial software deployments, that's going to be, we all need to be ahead of that, right?
And how far do you think we are from that? Or will just the as a service, this kind of enables you, well, how far do you think we are from that commercial software client? I won't say client server software, maybe client services. I don't know, how do you even talk about it?
I already have some customers personally who they're past that line of, hey, I work in IT. I've been told I need to stand up a container services platform because some other line of business wants to run software that they're going to go buy that delivers itself as a containerized application.
Right.
So the pioneers are already there.
And then the Kubernetes type of system will be responsible for updating those different containers along the way. Will it have intelligence that allows it to test and validate some of those things, or will it be at the mercy of your UAT environment?
Well, so that comes into, I think, why do I care about running things like OpenShift itself compared to vanilla Kubernetes, where I want that ability, that intelligence, that degree of control to orchestrate my updates, do the right kind of due diligence, right? Dev testing, unit testing if I want to know when it's safe to roll out those updates, compared to, like vanilla Kubernetes is simply like, I go tell it when to power the container on, I tell it when to turn it off, right? And there's not a lot of oversight intelligence baked in there. I could bake in that if I wanted to, right? I could bolt on a bunch of other parts and supervisors that would do that for me. But why? But that's part of the OpenShift value, right? Is why would I? Because that comes with the OpenShift as a platform. So, yeah. And you certainly need it, right? I mean, I have it here at my house, right? For the handful of containers that run my home in 2021. One of them does nothing but look for updates and then tell other containers to go update themselves when updates are available, right? But I had to add that functionality to, vanilla Kubernetes.
Kubernetes for the home. I got it.
It's a little out there, and I'll say not yet highly redundant, but don't tell my my in-home customers here.
Well, give me an example. What are you using Kubernetes at home for?
What am I using Kubernetes at home for? So one of them does analytics on my in-home media libraries, right? Just because I want to know that, and I'm a nerd. Like, what's being streamed? What are the top shows and movies that my kids are watching from my personal media library? One of them does one of them runs a DNS server, right? That also does ad blocking at the DNS level. So when you go to, let's pick on CNN.com, loading CNN.com makes your workstation perform 100 different DNS lookups.
Yeah.
20 of them load the page. The other 80 of them call out to ad networks. And all those go into a little DNS black hole and don't get a response when you're on my Wi-Fi at the house here.
Wow.
Yep.
That's definitely a usable. And you just came up with that, or you got that?
Oh, no. That's like it's on GitHub.
Yeah. Harvey, you do anything like that at home?
I am not. Jirah's just super fancy.
No, I hate looking at ads, right? Like we're the generation, right? Like we've had ad blockers and remember banner pop-up blockers?
Yes.
Yeah, as long as we've been on the internet, right?
So like I still use an ad blocker, but it's in my browser.
And you're totally right. You're totally right. But then when you pull up your phone, right?
Yeah.
Can you install anything on it? On some platforms you can.
It's got Chrome,
And see, Chrome
is Chrome.
Let's see, and I don't use Chrome mobile, but that's totally valid, right? You're solving the problem a different way. My way says if I'm on my home Wi-Fi, no ads, period, right? So no matter what device, what platform, my Xbox, my Switch, my PlayStation also, get no ads.
I'm gonna be nice, and I won't bring up the Android versus iPhone conversation at all.
I already I threw you a bone there, right? I just I named 3 more platforms that are more locked down than iPhone.
All right, so the other stuff that's called out here is the keynote, the day one keynote titled Mythbusters Cloud Edition, Go to the Cloud with Wendy Pfeiffer. That's one of several things. Jirah, any of these that you would call out as things that you experienced that you would highly recommend people to take in?
No, I found that one just super insightful. Wendy always leads a great session. And this one I loved personally attending it. It was fantastic, right? Just a bunch of, let's hear CIOs talk about how they're like we opened the show with, right? How are their workforces handling, various degrees of transition to, optional work from home, freedom to work from home. How are they handling collaboration, right? Across a broad swath of companies, right? So a bunch of C-levels having, chats about the topics that we all care about the most of the day.
Yeah. It's interesting times, no doubt. And just, I miss the in-person conferences, but at the same time, knowing that this content's available on demand to go out and take advantage of when you have the time. That's the problem for me. And I'm sure for Harvey too, is working the 50 hours a week-ish and then turn around and trying to do some of this stuff. Hopefully others out there don't have quite that issue and they can take advantage of all the content that's available to us.
Man, you're only doing 50? You wait till I get a hold of your boss.
I'm the boss now. So I don't know.
So, well, quick tangent, like, do y'all, I'm sure that's timely for the audience, right? Do y'all go on your calendar, carve out time for, hey, I wanted to, catch up on some blogs. I wanted to read that book or a couple chapters of a book or a critical podcast?
So I do cut out time on my calendar, but I wish it was for things that were that far down on the list.
No, for sure. That's been my experience, right? I will carve out, let's say a fraction of a Friday afternoon and try to reserve that and hold it for, like, I want to actually do some self-enablement here. And I always, kind of have that bet with myself going of, like, I'm going to block out this much time. Let's see how much doesn't get claimed and prioritized by the end of the week. And let's see what's left when we get there.
No, for me, it's more like, let me sit down and watch this basketball game. And, the laptop's in my lap, and that's when I, go out and read or do stuff. And, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't.
It's a challenge. You got more ways to get more things done, but more distractions than ever. I like Jirah's idea of claiming some time on your own calendar. I don't do nearly enough of that.
Yeah.
Nope, we're all getting better at it.
Well, and I know Harvey and Jirah both have young kids, and that's the family part of it. I'm getting closer, having some of my time back, but it still requires a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure. That is always a struggle, but I tell you, it shifts my work day a lot. You go and you have a work day, and then you come home and you have family time, and then you go and you have a work day.
Yeah. Well, and I was here a little while ago. I left, came back. Harvey was gone. Now he's here. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like we're all over the place these days. It's going to be a big week here at XenTegra. We've got a lot of leadership meetings and conversations to be had, and it'll be fun. It'll be good. But this week, I feel like I'm just consumed into that, and any extracurriculars are just definitely not going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for joining and picking this blog and letting us review it with you. I always, as always, appreciate your time, and very insightful, no matter whether we're talking about stuff that's already happened or whether we talk about futuristic things.
Likewise. Thanks for y'all's time.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it.
And with that, we'll call an episode. Thanks, guys.